Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, all.
Good morning.
I almost had some real good fun with the guys. They had all left to go get coffee, and I came back from getting mine, and nobody was here. And I was going to start it 6 minutes early and not tell them. But I thought better of that. So
very dangerous.
Yeah, very dangerous.
Oh yeah, that would have been fun.
But good to see everybody this morning. We were going to have Cam Caboose 121 back on this morning with a stream from his train show that he's going to this weekend. But he was telling me this morning that he didn't know if they'd have enough Wi-Fi power up there to do a good job. Plus, he wasn't going to get into the building until about halfway through this show. So he's going to do some video of it, and then we'll have him back on in a few weeks whenever he's got time to come on and show us that video. So if you were looking forward for that today, not going to happen. I did remember to send him the link, though. That was the miraculous thing. But Steve, you want to shoot the lineup for us?
Oh, it sure can. Good morning, everybody. Well, let's see. We got Eagle Creek Railroad. Good morning, my buddy Bernard C. How are you doing? Rob T-Man, John, Schuylkill River Valley. And we have Dwight Curley. Good morning. Gail's in chat. How are you? Heath, good morning. We got my bro, Brian at Iron Horse. See you, man. Stephen Wigwag. And I think that's it.
Well, Mark Brooks come in.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see Mark. Hey, Mark.
And Gerald Stewart's here now.
Gerald Stewart.
Good morning,
Okay.
both of you.
Well, good morning, everybody.
Good to see everybody this morning. As usual, we don't have a subject, but we will trudge on anyway.
We do better without a subject.
You did better with what? With Allison here?
Without a
subject.
Oh, without a subject.
Yeah.
These shows take on a life of their own. We don't need to have a topic.
Oh, I know it. It's like I say, the hour always goes by so fast.
We don't need no stinking topic.
But we were talking before the show when Dennis was starting a new building, so we'll have him show us that. But if you haven't seen his last video where he finished up the last building, and what was that, was that a shoe store?
Yes.
The first one you did?
Yeah, Mr. and Mrs. Cobbler's Colorado shoe store, yeah.
Yeah, if you haven't seen that, go watch it. Go at least look at the last, couple of 3 minutes of it where he shows the completed building, because he did a really nice job on it.
Yeah, I'll just go grab it real quick.
Oh, there you go. I knew I could get him to show stuff.
Yeah.
He's easy. He's such a good modeler, though. He blows me away. I can't believe he was fussing. If you saw the video, he was fussing over putting the ad sign on the side of the building and losing some of the ink and stuff out of the print. And I'm like, boy, that just makes it look better, I think.
Well, I agree. I wanted it to be just a little more readable than it turned out. Excuse me. From standing from the aisle, where you're going to be operating, I think it looks really good. But if you wanted to put a camera on the layout and really, show a scene of the building row going up the street, then you can see the cloth, you'll be able to see, that's paper. It's not paint. But from back here, it's just, that's a really old and faded sign, which is what I wanted. I wanted it to be, rather old and dilapidated looking, because that's kind of I wanted this sign to look like it had been there way longer than what, like maybe this was put in the 1880s and it's 1930 now. That's kind of the idea there. So, of course, I've got lighting in it. If you watch the first two videos, you got to see that part of it. But all in all, I'm fairly happy with how it turned out. And it's a 2x4, 2x4. for those of you in the Northeast. Down here we call them tubas, two-by-four.
2x4.
2x4, yeah. That's a word in itself.
Yep.
So I know you were putting lighting in the front. You know, if that LED ever goes bad, are you going to be able to take that out, or are you going to be kind of stuck if
no
it goes quickly?
You know, my thought is on that, if I keep the voltage below 12 volts, you know, like 9 volts, I shouldn't really have to worry about it. And if it goes out, I guess it goes out. I'm not going to lose any sleep if it doesn't, because like all of the buildings in the time saver, they're currently all lit up. That, I mean, the bulk of them are. There's probably 3 or 4 that aren't. One of them is the station house that's also made of a 2x. But unless I decide to turn off all the lights and turn the lights on, there is no real effect there. So the bulk of what I do when you operate is going to be with the lights on anyway. I have taken some good photographs of what they look like in low light, which is cool. But I'm not going, that's not going to be the focus of what I do is lighting on buildings. So I'm going to do it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Did you make the clapboard side sheets? Are they? They're pre-made. I think all of the material I'm using right now is from Northeast Scale Lumber. When we were talking about this particular building before the show, this is what I'm working on right now. This is it's clapboard in the front here. This is a barber shop. And then the back side of the building is going to be the dentist shop. So this building sits facing Blackhawk Street this way. And then as you're coming down Gregory Street, you get this. So it's ugly. It's going to be ugly. Mr. Barber and his family probably fallen on hard times since the stock market crash and haven't been able to keep their building up like the Joneses.
Well, he's got the question, how do you know it's a barber shop? And I can answer that because the other half of it's a dentist. And usually the dentist and the barbers were the same person. Back about the turn of the century anyway, they were.
Hey, Dennis, you need to do a video on how you do your the blocks of wood for your centers, how you cut them with your saw. You got some intricate angles on there to get the, you know.
I think the video one of this building, I do show that.
Oh,
I haven't done a dedicated video on exactly how I do it, but I've done a couple of different videos where I show it. And I might, one of the things I plan on doing today, since it's raining and it's nice and cool, I plan on gluing together several 2x4s, so that I've got plenty of stock ready to go, which, you know, like this building, this is leftovers from something else I did. I've got this. These are also leftovers that there's something in this block of wood that will probably eventually make the layout. This one, I can't remember what happened to this. I don't remember, but there's still, you know, I can probably get, where's my ruler? I can probably still get, you know, a 16-foot building out of this, maybe. For sure, a 12-foot building. So, but I plan on building all of the structures that are false front structures. The narrower ones will plan on building all of those first. And then I've got the two really bigger buildings and the two brick buildings that are on the angle. That's going to be a challenge because they're about I think a 35-degree angle. And I'm going to build those out of plywood. I've already kind of decided that I will set up my chop saw at that proper angle so that when they glue together, they'll glue together well. But I'm going to hold those off until I've done all of the false fronts first, because I think I can whip those out, in a couple of weekends each. So,
well, Heath is asking or saying you just make it up, but Heath, he actually has photos and maps, right?
Yeah.
You got some Sanborn maps too, didn't you? That actually
exactly
have the buildings on there.
That's exactly where this building came from. I don't think I've got the Sanborn map, but I took the measurements for this building, which and kind of drew out what I think it's going to look like. That this shape right here, that exists on the Sanborn map. I just inferred what was here because for the life of me, I could not figure out what in the world this difference, why did they create this shape in the map? This is obviously facing Blackhawk Street. And of course, it's my view is reversed at the moment. So left is right, right is left. But this faces a different direction. It faces more on Gregory Street than it does either Sealac Street and certainly not Blackhawk Street. So that's how I decided that that must be what it was. And it doesn't really matter. That's what it's going to be on my railroad, barbershop, get your teeth pulled.
Yeah.
So when you're walking down Gregory Street and your tooth is aching, you can see, hey, there's a barber shop right there, or a dentist shop. Look at all the bloody rags hanging outside the door.
Oh, I see Chuck has come in. Yeah, I was asking Steve's probably trying to tell you that I was asking him if he talked to you here lately because I hadn't heard from you or seen you anywhere.
I was just trying to put that in chat, and I messed up and I deleted somebody's message. Whoever I did, I apologize. I'm trying to
Dennis, I have a crazy idea for you.
Okay.
So for your dentist shop, you just said bloody rags outside. Now, that'd be kind of cool if you had, and I don't know if you would model, like an old hitching post or dilapidated to have something hanging over that. But the brilliant idea is to have Steve send you one of his wisdom teeth and you go home and mount it.
And put it outside on the sign. Yeah, that'd be great.
Dentist. You would know it's a dentist shop.
What the dimension would be an HO scale of one of Steve's wisdom.
Get me one massive tooth.
and for everybody that's wondering what he's talking about, this is why I didn't put us on 6 minutes before they knew we were on. You don't want to know.
You don't want to.
Oh,
you missed a good conversation, Jerry.
Yeah.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Yeah, we were talking about teeth and wisdom teeth, and I still have mine.
No.
Not in his mouth, though.
Not in his mouth, but he still has them.
I won't even ask you why. Hey, Dennis, I got a question for you.
Okay.
Why did you use those 2x4s?
Well, there's definitely some advantages to using a solid block of wood. The advantage for sure is that once you get your scribe siding glued on, zero chance of warpage. And I can go in with tools and dig and create all the distressing that I want. And It's just not going to go anywhere. It's solid. The only thing that makes these a little bit weak, of course, is the false front, which I already dropped this one. So, and you can you can see the repair that I did, which actually is going to add to the overall look of the building.
Yeah.
But when I built this, all of the woodwork on the inside here, all the 2x were, I forget what length I got, but I had essentially a foot or 2 foot of length left over of everything I cut. So I had a bulk of 2x4 ends that I had nothing to do with. I watched Rob Bennett. I don't know if anybody else watches Rob Bennett. I think his channel's called Steve Bennett Railroad, I think. A great modeler, great channel. Similar to me, he started with a bare room and has built everything around it. So you get to see from the beginning to where he's at now, which is one of my favorite formats for a model railroad. He had a guy on by the name of Bill Schaff. I think that's the correct name. I apologize if it's not that either one of those guys will watch this show. But he had a bunch of buildings that this is exactly how he created them.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Jerry, a kit like this is going to cost at least $40.
Right.
I've got virtually nothing in it. I mean,
so all those
windows.
So that front part is what?
It's
just kit bashing stuff.
Yeah, it's just sheet clapboard or sheet siding, which you can buy from numerous places.
Is that stuff expensive?
I've bought stuff from Fast Tracks and get 2 pieces, not quite that length. Well, how long is that?
I think this is a 2 foot length.
Usually the ones from Fast Tracks are a foot long, and I get 2 foot long by 6 inches wide for, $10.
Somebody in
shipping
chat
is what is expensive.
Scale lumber and look up, either scribe siding or beadboard siding and see how much. I mean, it might be like $10 or $12. I can't remember, but I'm going to get a lot of buildings out of this. I haven't used even. I think I had 2 of these. I think is what I purchased the last time, and I haven't even used half of one yet. And I built.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. I've got 3 little shop buildings, maintenance buildings, and frying pan that I've built. I've got one of the station house on the time saver is that way, and then these 2 buildings. It's again, this kit, a Craftsman kit that. First of all, you're not going to get anything that really looks like if you're trying to make like I am. I'm actually wanting to make the street of Blackhawk look somewhat like the pictures do. I'm not trying to go for perfection, but I'm wanting the overall look of that street. You're not going to find this building, in a kit anywhere. You might find something close to it, but so. I know it's a long-winded way of saying it's cheaper, and you get the building that you want.
Have you done any videos on how you do them?
Yeah, at least 4, I think.
Okay.
This building here is a 3-part series, so.
Oh, all right. I have to look for them.
I don't know that I go into detail on those video series on how I cut the wood and stuff, but that part of it, if you're not already someone who's comfortable with cutting wood and have the tools, you're not going to care.
Yeah.
But if you're someone who has a table saw and a miter saw, it's very, very doable for you. And if you already have them, you probably already know how to make cuts. So it's not, there's nothing revolutionary about how that part of it's done. There's a
Right.
sequence.
It's not so much that. It's more so like your process of everything else.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, Dennis, when you cut you've measured out your building the size you want from your plans or whatever you've got there. When you cut your rough block, do you allow for the thickness of your siding and stuff on it?
Not generally, because unless there's a specific spot where it needs to go and it has to be specific dimensions. I think on this building, I did decide that I wanted it from where the trim is, from one side to the other. I intentionally made it 16 feet, 16 scale feet. I did that more to prove that I could than because I needed it to be. But this building, I can't remember. It was all based on this.
In front of that.
With my plastic insert needed to be a certain size. And so then I created the block around it.
Well, that's kind of disappointing because I thought you were a lot more anal than that.
No. Now, when it comes to doing the rest of the buildings, some of those buildings, I'm going to try and get them within a foot or two of what the mock-up is right now.
Yeah.
Just because I do have, from the end of the street to one end to the other is, I can't remember, I measured it, what it was scale feet wise, I don't remember. But those buildings need to fit in there in a certain way. So I'm going to try and get all of those buildings at least within a foot of what they are now as the mock-up. Since you are working on structures, do you mean that you are finished with all the track work? I'm nowhere near finished with all the track work.
Which is a good thing.
Right. So my plan right now is I'm going to probably focus the bulk of my time on structures because I really need to get those structures completed so I can work on the rest of Blackhawk Street, which I'm going to go ahead and since we're on this topic, I'm going to go ahead and show you what I've done in Blackhawk because I have done quite a little bit of stuff. Let's see.
Well, Gerald Stewart's asking if you have Harry W. bunks up Clear Creek on the narrow gauge.
Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, now the dimensions are a little bit different on this one. I'm upside down. But that particular building was heavily inspired by Harry Brunk. And I haven't done it yet, but in that particular book, he's got an eating house. I'm reversed. I don't want to be reversed. Hold on.
You're fine to us.
I know that, but I'm going to be doing everything backwards. I'm going to be fighting myself. Okay. So I know this is just an uncoupler. It's not the pointer, but this is an eating house. That's also in Harry Brunk's book. And then there's a station, a little bitty station. This was all one building in Harry Brunk's.
Are these to scale?
Yeah, these are to scale to what the actual. I don't know what the exact height is yet. I haven't mocked them up yet.
Right.
But that's in the plan. I don't know when I'm going to mock them up yet, but eventually I will. But what I've done is I've gone in and figured out what the elevations are, and that's where the cobbler goes there. The elevations for everything is. So
And the one you're working on now goes right there at the end of that street.
It goes right here, so that the odd shape is facing kind of this area right here.
So Dennis, I have a question. That foam that you have everything on, the highest point of that foam, what will happen from that area to the left on your base there? What happens there?
So what eventually will happen once I'm entirely sure that I've got the footprint I want, I will cookie cut all of the masonite. Cookie cut around it, and then what's underneath that right there will come out, and all of that will get attached to that particular piece of masonite and be one element that I can put on my long workbench over there. I can work on the buildings individually, put them on the foam eventually, and then do detail work on the back side as well as the front side.
So you're saying that that whole little section there of all those buildings is going to be cut out and fit into your layout?
Correct. And then, so, going with the cookie cutter, through here, this way also gets cookie cut. So there's a road. Ignore that piece of masonite. It's just there as a holding spot for everything else. So I'm not trying to move every building individually. I can take that and move it as need be, but that won't be there. That's just kind of a stand-in. But so this street, this is Sealack Street. I like to call it Sleestack Street, but it also gets cookie cut. And then, your cookie cut here. And so that road wraps around here. All of that plywood or the masonite will then get risen, I don't know if that's right, and it will interface with the elevation so that your road grows from that end to this end to eventually to where maybe a church will be back here.
So it'll actually, there'll be a incline or decline or different elevation. I kind of get it now, because I just can't wrap my head around why you're doing all this and not just put all that stuff on a flat layout.
Well,
I got you.
Yeah, because this whole thing is a mountain ridge. There'll be a high point somewhere back behind these three buildings, and I mean, here's what the end result eventually will look like.
That's crazy. Wow.
Can you get closer to that?
I told you he was anal.
Man.
Making a model of the model. But it gives you an idea. It gives you a way of seeing what you're going to try to replicate.
So I have to ask, Dennis, are your buildings color coded for a reason?
Yeah, everything that's red is a brick building.
So what is that little layout you got right there?
Where?
Right there.
This one.
Yeah, that whole thing.
That's his little double Z scale.
It's a maquette. It's.
Are you kidding me?
What?
We tried to tell you, Jerry.
I want to curse you right now. How long did it take you to make that?
I've probably got 2, maybe 3 weekends in that.
Oh my God! You made a model of your model.
Yeah.
Gail must be an absolute saint putting up with you. If
Oh
I
my
spent that
Lord.
much time, I'd be divorced.
Still think that would make an excellent Z scale model.
It's that much less time she has to look at him,
Jeez.
So Dennis, let me ask you something. Dennis, is that how your brain works? You need to see it like that before you can proceed to your next step to build the real model?
Yes and no. I mean, I'm absolutely a visual person.
I am too, but yeah.
I see things in my head, but what that allowed me to do was just kind of figure out how high can the ridge line be, because this is this is a scale 3 inches above the phone. You know, I didn't just, it's not just artistic, so to speak. You know, that end, this building is a scale 3 inches because I actually created the foundations of all the buildings for those just like I did here, so that I knew the actual height that this needed to be. This is 2 inches, that's 3 inches. It's that way on the maquette as well. That way I wasn't guessing what I needed to do here big. I knew that was going to work, and then now I know about how high the ridge line needs to be everywhere through here.
You're like a true modeler in a sense.
I do think I'm a modeler first and a railroader second, without a doubt. Yeah.
Yeah, because you go through the process of building, you know, a model of what you're going to eventually wind up with, whether it's a model or a real house or project. Or
The blue buildings.
I think he's talking about on the smaller, the mock-up of the smaller one there.
Oh, so essentially there's just two different kinds of buildings. There's the brick buildings and there's the wood buildings. The yellow buildings just represent, I guess, railroad structures, because that's the only other color I used besides, it's actually white. They came out blue because the white was real thin on the green foam, so it kind of came out as a light blue. But these are supposed to be railroad structures, and there will be another structure here somewhere. I just haven't decided what it's going to be. It may just be nothing more than a small mine opening. Not sure yet.
So I apologize because I can't really see chat, so I have to go back and forth. And if somebody said something, I apologize. Hello, everybody.
But I did a lot of foam cutting, so now it's just a matter of finishing all the buildings, which there's going to be a lot of work involved in that.
Well, Dennis, I tell you, man, if I had a project team, you would be on my project team.
You'd be way behind, Jerry, but he'd be a good one.
That's okay. He's pretty thorough.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Good work doesn't come quickly or cheap.
No, doesn't, not at all.
That is correct. There's a right way and there's a sloppy way.
Yeah, I mean, there's, yeah.
And then there's Dennis's way.
Yeah.
Now, have you thought about doing what you're doing in, like, computer? I'm not computer savvy, so I could never do that. Design that little layout in a computer to be 3D, you know. I'm not good at that stuff.
That's actually the very first thing I did.
Okay.
I've got pretty much everything on the layout right now existed in a computer first. Most of the buildings, not all of them, but most of the buildings and the footprints of the buildings, at least as associated to the track, anything that was going to be trackside exists in my track plan. Yeah.
So Black Hawk really existed.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they got casinos there now if you want to go.
Oh really?
Yep. Go up Clear Creek out of Denver, west out of Denver.
I just thought that like all these places that you were modeling were just in your head.
No, he's actually taking sandboard maps on a lot of this stuff. Now he's having to switch it around some, as we always do.
Right. I just figured he picked.
But no,
yeah,
Black Hawk. Okay. Yeah, Black Hawk is a real town, still there.
Yeah, I just figured
it's a neat little town to go see. Yeah.
Gotcha. I just figured he picked an area. It had a name, but it might not have been what he's using, and he started doing the buildings. But I get you.
In fact, we took our kids there back, we were up there in 95 and when the kids were little, and we stopped in Pan for Gold just south of Black Hawk, or just east of Black Hawk on the Clear Creek.
So then, if there's a book about this, a lot of people must model this area.
There's been a lot of Colorado Southern narrow gaugers that, you know, has built these.
Yeah.
So you're going to be added to this list. Have you seen any of the others, and how do they compare to the detail of your layout?
Well, I mean, I don't consider I'm not modeling the Colorado and Southern, and I'm also not modeling Black Hawk per se. I'm just taking the images, you know, of the area and creating Silver Gulch that if you happen to know Black Hawk, maybe you are a narrow gauger that does Colorado Southern and you're familiar with that town, you might walk into my model railroad and go, is that Black Hawk? You
So
might do that. But
you're
the
not
average person would never know.
You're not necessarily going to call that area Black Hawk.
No, it's Silver Gulch.
It's like, it's hard to keep up with everybody, so I apologize. It really is, because, you know, you're like, I hear what you're talking about, but like, once we're done talking, it's gone, you know?
You can't keep up with everyone. It's impossible. Even if you made it a concerted effort to watch every video from every person, which again is impossible. You shouldn't retain everything that everyone's doing.
No.
And I don't
Exactly.
It's not like I'm going to get wrapped around the axle if you don't go watch my videos. I mean,
no, I understand that, but I'm trying to follow you and then trying to get a sense of what you're doing and why you're doing it. And it's slowly coming along.
I like that. Not get wrapped around the axle. I'm gonna have to use that one.
Well, Dennis has a grand plan there for sure, and it was a lot easier to see what his vision was when I was there, because you can see the whole room at one time. It's very tough to tell on video when he says, "I want to do this and this and this." It's very hard to see that in the video, you know, watching. But if you're standing there, you get the sense of the size of things, and you can really tell what's going on. And you know, of course, that goes with pretty much anything. If you're there, it looks a lot better than a picture.
The OC and RG, the Otter Creek, is a fictional railroad that is drawing on elements of Denver and Rio Grande, Colorado and Southern, and the Colorado and Midland. Those three, and Rio Grande Southern probably as well. Those 3 or 4 the whole Colorado narrow gauge theme exists in the Otter Creek and Rio Grande, but it's none of the above. It is its own entity, and I've actually already started on the story. You know, like, and I'm just one of those weird people. You know, everything has to make sense to me to a certain degree. Yeah. You know, Mr. Cobbler. You know, he allowed Banjo Tobacco to put that sign on his building, and they went tits up in 1929. He never got paid any revenue for allowing them to put the sign on his building, because they went tits up, and he's still a little upset that he allowed them to put that sign on the side of his building, and he never got a dime for it.
He sounds really pissed, you know. That's just
like,
he's going to be able to write a book about the story of everybody in this railroad.
Mr. Barber might have a similar story. I'm not finished with Mr. Barber yet.
I don't think I'd want to visit him as the dentist if he's going to have that kind of a backstory.
Mine's a little easier. I'm taking names of family members and putting it in mine. I mean, I'm going to have a butcher shop in there where my great grandfather had a butcher shop.
Oh, yeah.
So
at some point,
you know,
at some point when you're done, will you tell all these stories in many of your videos?
One of my thoughts is, I haven't fully fleshed it out yet, but I've got a friend who I used to work with, several years ago. Every once in a while, she pops in and watches one of my videos. She suggested that I should do a whole nother channel just of me telling stories.
Yeah.
Which I have no interest in doing. However,
yeah, but like Dennis, you're taking the time with these stories, and truthfully, who's going to hear them? Because who's going to come to bum F Oklahoma to see your legs?
Me, I go. I'm
I know
halfway
you
there.
go, and maybe a few people, but it's not like, it's not like it's going to be like a mecca and like you're going to have thousands of people and you can tell these stories over and over again. Like, you got all these good stories that you're putting together. I think, and it's just me, whether you do it, you don't. It doesn't matter.
I could see Dennis. I could see
you gotta
Dennis doing like
share them.
I could see Dennis doing like a prairie home companion type during some of your operations that you film. You're following the trains, but then you take that side story as you're going past the building and you're wanting to showcase it.
Yeah.
Something like that would be easy to do, and you could definitely tell some interesting tales.
That's what I was saying. If at some point I've got a finished product, it all hinges on the finished product. I might actually do some voiceover. If I write the story, I've actually got it in print.
Yeah.
I might actually do a voiceover story of the OC and RG in X number of installments, dedicated videos.
You got to do that because you've got the perfect music already.
Yeah.
I swear the music for your videos is spot on for what it is.
Otherwise, you're just telling these stories to yourself.
Why do we do anything, though? I mean,
I think we need to talk to Gail about that.
That's fine too.
Do we build a model railroad to please others, or do we build a model railroad to please ourselves?
Exactly.
The answer should be everything we're doing is for ourselves, and we hope that other people are engaged and enjoy the efforts that you put into it. Only other model railroaders get it. That's obvious. That takes about that long to figure out that only everyone else is like, oh, God.
Yeah.
You got too much time on your hands.
Yeah. See, and I'm even less of that than Dennis is, because I'm definitely building it for me. And if you happen to like it, fine. If you don't, I could care less. It's not about you. It's about me. It's my hobby. And I'll show it to you if you want to see it. It's the only reason I got a channel, because I had people ask. And so they can see it if they want to see it, but they don't have to come, and they don't have to comment, and they don't have to like it. But if they do, great. I don't mind showing it, but it's strictly for me. If I was doing it for somebody else, I'd be wanting to get paid. So, because it just takes so much time and energy and money.
See what Chad has to say.
What's Chad have to say?
Nathan DeLay says, are you going to run a galloping goose on your layout?
I don't know.
Related to...
I don't have any dedicated plans to have one, because those are pretty specific to the Rio Grande Southern. And since this is not the Rio Grande Southern, I have thought about the idea of creating, maybe the Otter Creek Express or something similar that wouldn't be the Rio Grande, it wouldn't be the Galloping Goose, but it would be something else that I name, like maybe scratch build something in front of a passenger car, something along those lines that would be similar, but
like a rail bus.
Goose itself, a rail bus that.
So back during that time, right? What would have been the equivalent of a doodlebug?
Well, the Galloping Geese were pretty close, but there again, they were strictly on the Colorado.
So like a doodlebug would be like passenger. What was that?
I don't know. We got some feedback from somewhere.
So like a doodle bug, Dennis, would have been like a passenger, mail, freight type of piece of equipment in the, I don't know, 30s, 40s, 50s.
Well, yeah, I mean, the galloping geese on the Rio Grande Southern operated up until early 50s.
That's what kept
Just
the
before they
railroad
dismantled the
alive for
railroad.
last several years that it existed. If it hadn't been for the galloping geese, it would have went belly up long before it did.
Yeah.
So is that
galloping geese
is that
actually
what that
kept them
did
viable
too?
for a while, just delivering mail even.
Mm-hmm.
But they
So
took
I'm not
passengers and they took sightseeing trips too.
I'm not familiar with that. So okay.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to show you some pictures next week.
Yeah.
I'm going to have
I've
some on
seen
mine, but only because I
I've-
think the geese are cool. So that's the only reason
I've
I got
seen
them.
them. Yeah, I've seen them. I just didn't know what their purpose was.
Yeah, they did mail. They did maintenance. They had some that were just maintenance. And then they had some that were sightseeing. You know, later on, they made them sightseeing cars and took them up the Lizard Head Pass. Because that's some beautiful, where the Colorado Southern ran from Dolores up to Telluride and then on up to Ridgeway, some beautiful country through there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fairly sparsely populated except for Telluride. But going over Lizard Head Pass and by Ophir and all that, it's really pretty. And from what I understand, the railroad, if you could follow the actual railroad bed of the railroad, it was even better scenery because of the way they had to run it. Just like the Ophir Loop, they had to do the loop in Ophir. They had to go up in the canyon and make the big loop and come back out because of the elevation changes. And so they do something similar with the White Pass line. If you go to Alaska, to Skagway, Alaska, and go up and take that up to the Canadian border, they have one spot where they go way back in the canyon and loop over a bridge, a newer bridge, because the old bridge went out on the face of the canyon, of a side canyon, and it's much longer, and the bridge still stands there, but I wouldn't want to be on that bridge. Looking at having seen it. You know, it was much safer to go back up the canyon a ways, circle around on a little narrow or a little less climb and make the climb back to the other side. A little longer route, but it's much safer that way.
Yeah,
And
the
so
Rio
that's what
Grande
they did
Southern is
there.
probably the most modeled narrow gauge line there is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've been modeling
One of the
that.
reasons why I wanted to stay away from it.
Yeah.
Well, I like the scenery around it. I like the mountains.
Right.
That's why I did mine like mine, but mine's completely fictitious. And so I can put on there whatever I want to put on it, and it'll have some galloping geese. And I haven't decided whether I'm going to rename them or not, because my story has it being a defunct part of the Rio Grande. So
Roy says that instead of galloping geese, I could have paddling otters.
There you go. Oh, well, Bill, what have you been doing this week? Anything constructive, or we Dennis took up the whole hour almost.
Yeah,
That's
I
okay.
apologize.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot that I've done. I've been actually doing one of my favorite topics. I've been building trees.
Uh-oh.
So, you know, I was talking last week that I'm working on the HO scale, taking off the commercial bought pine trees. So I'll just show you real quick. It's sitting right here.
And while Bill's switching over, I'm going to put this up there. Bernard said he used to live in Dolores, which there's actually a galloping goose, and it is operational, and it is parked in front of the old depot in Dolores. I had pictures of it the last time I went up there, and they still truck it over to some of the narrow gauge railroads and run it at certain times of the year. Okay, Bill, take us away.
All right. So real quick, same construction method that I've been doing here recently. I've got, grapevine wire for my trunks of these trees. Some of them are a single strand, some of them are 3-strand, but these are all for HO scale. And I don't know if you can get a good view of it, but you know, these are the armatures. So what I do is I take some of the florist wire and I make a line of loops in a florist wire strand, anywhere from 6 inches to about 18 inches, depending upon the size of the tree, and then just wrap it around. and then cut off the ends of the loops. So each of these double branches are where I've snipped the loop, paint it with Mod Podge, use Woodland Scenics ground cover, and I get tree trunks. So the next step for these is I'll use Mod Podge on the tips of each of those limbs, and then I'll sprinkle a combination of 2mm static grass mixed with Woodland Scenics green ground cover, do a base coat, then come in and I will sprinkle on some 6mm static grass, and then let that sit. Then I'll paint those ends with Mod Podge and then go back to the 2mm. And then I will have completed trees, and I'll swap out my bought trees on the HO scale. That'll probably be done by the end of the day today.
Hey,
So
Bill.
That's what I've been doing.
So you, on your foliage on the branches, are they going to be, I think you've done one of these trees already that you've got on one of the layouts.
Yeah, I've got a number of them that are done. So this is
yeah, like that. Okay.
Yep.
So the foliage is going to be more at the end of the branches instead of the whole.
Right.
The whole
Yeah.
tree.
I take a paintbrush with Mod Podge and I just paint the tips of the branches so that I've got the branches. Nothing sticks to it, so it looks good. And then I just do it about 2 or 3 different times so that I can build it up. The first one adds just a base where everything else can stick on. Then I take Mod Podge and I just sort of beat the side of the branch so that I get little globs of Mod Podge. Not a lot, just a little. Then the bigger static grass will stick to that and make a fuller structure. Then I come back with additional Mod Podge and again, just paint it on after the first couple of coats set, and then sprinkle on the finer material again so that I get the actual needle look and it looks broader. One other thing that I do is before I do the final application, so after I put on the 6mm static grass, I'll take it outside and give it a shot of brown paint from underneath, a light one, so that some of that 6mm static grass looks like little branches that are coming off. It kind of has that color. So it gives it a pretty nice effect.
Hey, Bill.
Yes.
Tedious, hardest part of this whole process, what is it?
Letting the glue dry.
No, other than that, I mean, like, is creating that trunk that you got there, is that pretty much the hardest part of this process?
Pretty much. The trunk itself, goes quick. I use carpenter glue to kind of glue the pieces together, and then those twist ties, that goes fast. The most tedious part is taking the florist wire and then making the little loops where, it's kind of hard with one hand, but, you kind of loop it and then you spin this around multiple times if you're at the bottom of the trunk, only a couple of times if you're near the top, so that you have branches that are, extending out from the tree. And doing that, maybe probably 2 dozen times in a foot. And then that's the most tedious part of it. But then when you actually wrap it and go around the trunk, that goes quick. You can space it. Then I tack it with a little glue, let it sit for a little while. So this, I've been doing since last week, and this has just been a little bit of odds and ends in the evening to get these done. And then like last night, I sat down, and last night I did the Mod Podge paint on everything and then put the ground cover on. So that part of it went quick. This is ready to go to the final steps. So, probably another couple of hours and I'll have all these done and on the layout actually.
Well, Nathan DeLay says, do you spray paint your trees when you make them, and are the store-bought trees temporary? And then Dwight Curley wants to know how you learned how to do it.
Just doing it. So just practicing. I just had an idea, so the original trees ideas that I had were these, and I'd seen the material at Hobby Lobby for like the trunks, and I figured, hey, that's an idea, and that's what I wanted to do. So just practice with it and doing different methods. The paint. So to Nathan's question, so I don't paint a lot. I use the colors that Woodland Scenics has that look natural. So, and I like the colors, so I don't do a lot of painting. But when I do these particular trees and I paint from underneath, I use this Rust-Oleum espresso satin just to give it a little quick shot looking up the trunk just to kill some of the green of the static grass. And then when I put the other static grass on, I don't do any painting after that. Everything looks pretty good from there.
That's a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
Well,
So here's an idea, Bill.
I found the dark brown Rust-Oleum camouflage brown, the camouflage series of paints that Rust-Oleum has.
Yeah.
Like 4 colors. The darker brown, not the black one, but the darker brown.
The dark brown and then the camo green.
That's a real good one. And I use that same paint for my rail.
Yeah.
That's what I spray my rail with. It's a really good not a ruddy brown, but it's a good dark, greasy, rusty brown color.
Yeah, and that's what I use for the furnace filter trees. I use a lot of that camo green, the camo brown, but there for a while during the pandemic, couldn't find any of that paint anymore. So I went to this other, primer sealer, and it works well too with the colors. So for the different trees, a little bit of different colors, and it gives it different variation. But it's like got my little thing with my 2 millimeter static grass, and I can use different colors in this when it starts to get low. And I put in some Woodland Scenics ground cover, again, the real fine. You don't want to use coarse because coarse doesn't really look that good. Use that. And then I've got my 6 millimeter static grass. I've got some 12 millimeter static grass that I use sometimes on some of the O scale trees that I've done. That works well. You just experiment and just have fun doing it different ways, and you get good results. And it's easy to do. It really turns out well.
Yeah, Roy wanted to know if wood skewers and furnace filter squares work for evergreen trees. They do, Roy. I've done some of the smaller ones on mine with wood skewers, and I just take them over to the disc sander, and I sand a tip on the end, and then do them that way with furnace filters, and they work really well too for smaller trees. For the great big ones, the grapevine wire works better. But if you're doing N scale, wood skewers would definitely work for that. Nathan wanted to know, how do you make bigger trees than the trees that you're making now?
Same way. I've got, again, I'll show Nathan real fast. So the same method that I just showed is I did here. So this is an O scale tree. This is about 13 inches tall. So grapevine wire, about 5-6 strands for the trunk. Again, 5 to 6 about here, then about 4, then about 3, then about 2 up. This is florist wire. Again, this method I did just a little different in that I drilled holes into the grapevine wire, which is the nice thing about that, because it's got that fiber coating around it. You can drill into it, and you might hit that wire that's in the core, but you move to the side a little bit so you can get it in, and it's easy to stick the florist wire into those holes and glue them in place. Then the same method, I painted it with Mod Podge, covered it with the ground cover, and then came in and then painted the tips and then did the sprinkles on it. So the same method works. You just add a little bit more materials to it.
Yeah, those trees look great.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't know, if you go over to Bill's channel, he's got several videos on how he's done all the trees on here.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic to watch because it's really easy to do. It does take a little bit of time, but you do a batch at a time, and pretty soon you'll have a lot of trees.
Yeah. One of these days I will make playlists on my channel. I've been thinking about doing that, so I'll have it for like trees, tracks, scenery, all kinds of different stuff. I just been lazy and I haven't done it yet.
There you go. Wait till you retire. You'll get really lazy.
I'll get it done then.
Well, that's the end of our hour, guys. As usual, thanks for being here, and hope you had a good time. And Michael McCarthy stopped in. Mike, we need to get you back on the show again sometime. I'll holler at you here for too long, and we'll see if we can't get you back on the show so you can show us some of the line that you're working on now that he's got his own business going, and Brian does too. So we'll get you guys on here and let you show your wares on here. And as usual, Steve and Bill and Jerry, glad you could join us today.
Yeah.
And Dennis, you know, go build some more mock-ups or something.
I plan on it.
Anyway, thanks for being here, guys, and
See you, everybody.
have a good weekend and
Care
good
all.
week, and we'll see you next week.
Later.